How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of horseshoehuddle.com, and of course, your favorite co-host over the Locked On Colts podcast. We are back yet again with another video talking all about the Sauce Gardner trade to the Indianapolis Colts. If you were living under a rock yesterday, the Indianapolis Colts traded 2 first-round picks and A.D. Mitchell to acquire the all-pro cornerback from the New York Jets, only 25 years old, and he cost the Colts a total of like $10 million against the cap over the next 25 games, so by the end of next season. So the Colts get one of the best cornerbacks in football at a pretty reasonable price tag. I know what they gave up is a lot, but price tag in terms of cap dollars, and it's going to help them maximize this window this season and next season, and maybe even going forward since he's only 25 years old. But you know, there's so many things to cover with this trade, from what it means for the Colts, what it means for the Colts defense, and so much more. But one aspect I really want to talk about is what I call the Mooney Ward impact. How this trade basically is so much better for me because the Colts have an impact player like Mooney Ward, and just the ability to combine these two players in this Lou Anarumo defense is so exciting for me. You know, so Mooney Ward is expected to be back a little bit after the bye week. We'll see if it's as early as the Kansas City game, but that would be 5 weeks since his concussion, so I'm assuming he'll be back for Kansas City, and that's when we'll really see this new look secondary unleashed on the rest of the NFL. And to kind of just dive into what Mooney Ward was bringing the Colts early in the season, he was a true just number one corner that was traveling with whatever the Colts perceived to be the biggest threat on the opposing team. So we see here against the Tennessee Titans, he's basically lined up with Calvin Ridley all game long. It didn't matter where Calvin Ridley was going to be. The Colts trusted Mooney Ward to just travel with him. It could be in the slot, it could be bunch looks, it can be condensed formations, press man coverage, off man coverage, whatever it needed to be. The Colts trusted Mooney Ward to play with him. And here we're going to see Ridley just kind of do like a quick glance route over the middle. Ward does a great job of playing that outside leverage, but then when he sees Ridley break inside, he undercuts the route and does a great job of just forcing the pass breakup, forcing the incomplete pass on this play. So it gets physical at the line, undercuts it, knocks the ball away. Kenny Moore does a great job at the end of knocking the ball officially away from him, but great job there by Ward. We get this kind of tough look here from the Titans for a corner where Ward is in this press man coverage, playing a bit of outside leverage, but he's facing a bit of a two-way go here. You know, with where this condensed look is and how far inside they are from the numbers, this is a bit of a two-way go for a corner, so it is a bit difficult. You know, Ward does a good job of wanting to stay on top and force where if Ridley wants to go outside, he's going to force him outside the numbers, but he does a great job with this route. You know, he's playing this press man look. And even though Ridley does get to the outside, he's getting outside the numbers, and Ward's able just to stay in that hip pocket, stay on top of the route, get his eyes back to the quarterback, and get that pass breakup along the sideline. Excellent stuff there. We go to this Los Angeles Rams game, and while the Colts didn't travel Ward with Puka Nacua, they opted to bracket Nacua in a lot of situations, which, you know, had some of its issues as well. But they had him traveling with Davante Adams, who has just been an absolute phenom in recent weeks, especially when Nacua was out with injury. And what the Rams are trying to do here is they're trying to get Davante Adams a bit of a free release here against Ward. So they're motioning him across the formation. That's going to give Ward this off-man coverage look, and they're going to run more of an out and up against the Colts blitz. And their key is, again, just to isolate against this off corner and see if they can get him to bite on that under move, especially given that it's third down. But Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward, just does a fantastic job of staying on top of this route, not falling for the outbreaking aspect of it, staying on that inside hip, and probably should have had his first interception of the year here if he would have got his head around slightly sooner. So great coverage there. And then we get to this play here against Trey Tucker, a very good athletic speed threat for the Las Vegas Raiders. And they're trying to just isolate him on that backside against Ward, where, you know, Ward's obviously a corner that's up for the task here, but the Colts trusted him to even turn and run with this fantastic speed threat, and he's able to stay on top of that route all the way with his length and his speed. So if we look at what Ward really brought this Colts defense before his injury against the Cardinals in whatever week that was, week 6, week 7 it was there, it really was this guy who could just travel with anybody. You know, like it didn't matter if it was into the slot, these condensed formations, like he was going to travel with the guy that the Colts deemed to be this big threat. And they didn't really have many fears of what like his limitations could be or anything like that. Like, he's not a perfect corner by any means, but he's so competitive, athletic, and long that they trust him in these situations, and they could roll coverages to the other side, or they could attach zone on the backside of him playing, more man coverage and lock coverage on the backside. So that's kind of what he brought to the team. And I think that's vital, because if we look at where Sauce Gardner has struggled, especially these last 2 years, where his play has kind of tapered off just a little bit. And when I say tapered off, I mean like he's been like a top 10 to 15-ish corner in football rather than the top 2 corner that he was his first 2 years. So still very, very good, just hasn't been his same dominant self. But I think some of the issues have come when the Jets have asked him to be a corner that can travel to all aspects of the field. So what we see here, for instance, is in a game earlier this season against the Bills get him in the slot against Josh Palmer. And Josh Palmer's not the best receiver in football by any means, but he's a very athletic speed threat receiver who has this two-way go off the line of scrimmage. So, for Gardner, you want to play this a little bit head up. You want to play on top of it. And it's difficult because of where he is in the slot to get hands-on and disrupt at the point of attack, which is where Gardner really thrives. So for the Bills, getting him to move into the slot and giving him a speed threat here that can just run away from him in man coverage is a very difficult assignment for Gardner. And we see it here on this play where, again, Gardner's not able to get hands-on at the line of scrimmage. It leads to a free release for Palmer. Palmer's able to work across the field in this run away from him route, draws the defensive holding on Gardner, and gets the big time completion. And that was, kind of an issue there. We see with this Colts game last year, Shane Steichen understands the same limitation that we see in Gardner's film, where with the condensed formation here, Alec Pierce kind of has a two-way go, especially with his vertical ability. So Gardner's playing a little bit of outside leverage here because you just don't want to allow Pierce to get up that sideline because he's such a great vertical threat. And as a result, he's able to avoid the physical attack at the press man look here. Pierce is able to just get that free release, get a run away from him route over the middle of the field, stair step, and get that catch for a big completion. So if there are any real issues in Gardner's game, it is when he has to travel to, these condensed sets, when he has to travel to two-way go land, when he has to go into the slot. Those are really where we're seeing the issues with Gardner. He's at his best when he can play press man coverage in a physical way on the boundary, or he can just be this dominant zone corner. That is where he thrives. So we're going to get into some of those areas where he thrives. Like here, even though this is a little bit of a condensed look with Tet McMillan, it's third down. It's on top of the numbers here. He can play inside leverage, and he's not really too worried about the vertical speed element from Tet McMillan. He can just be physical with him and sit on the sticks, especially with the blitz coming. And Gardner does a great job of, one, disrupting with the press, getting hands-on, and then attacking that underneath route and getting that pass breakup. We get to a couple plays here in zone coverage. I think he's a very, very underrated zone coverage corner. His length and his zone eyes are just fantastic for the position. So just looking at these two plays, I mean, look, the Bills are trying to get him in that difficult man coverage look. They're trying to get him to play off man coverage against this condensed formation, this stack look that they're giving him. And they're trying to get this high-low where one player is going underneath here to draw Gardner up into the flat, and they're trying to attack with that corner behind. But because Gardner's such a good zone coverage corner, we see that this entire just backside play is just thwarted by him, where, he does sit on that underneath route initially, and Josh Allen is looking underneath to draw Gardner up. But Gardner kind of recognizes what's going on behind him, and he sinks into that deep corner window, does a great job of pinching this corner route with the safety. And as a result, we get Josh Allen to hitch on his throw. He has to roll out to the left, and it results in an intentional grounding for the Bills offense, gets them out of touchdown range, and they end up kicking a field goal on this drive, I believe, just a couple plays later. And then this play against the Denver Broncos, I think, is just fantastic, where we're going to get the cheat motion here from the Broncos to sorry, let me get this off the screen here. We're going to get the cheat motion here from the Broncos to isolate, again, Gardner in more of like this off man, just a place that he's not super comfortable, where, again, he wants to play in zone. He wants to play press man coverage. So cheat motion just to get him off of Cortland Sutton. And the Broncos are trying to put him in a bind here where we're going to get this rollout action. We're going to get Cortland Sutton sitting in this window, and we're going to get Franklin, who's a little bit off screen here, but he's just going to work up the sideline. And for Bo Nix, your options are hit here or hit here, depending on what Gardner does. So everything is based on what Gardner's reaction is in zone coverage. And initially, Gardner is pinching Courtland Sutton to the middle. So he gets hands on Troy Franklin to disrupt that vertical route, breaks out here to go after Sutton, which causes the clutch from Bo Nix, where Bo Nix doesn't feel comfortable throwing that ball to Sutton. And then when Nix is trying to work back up to the sideline to Franklin, we get Gardner just sinking back into that zone, sinking back into that window. And yes, Nix probably could have hit that window still, because that's what NFL quarterbacks do. But when you have this 6'2", 6'3" corner with very long arms and a history of pass breakups and deflections, you don't want to test that window. You don't want to test that window, even if he's, a good 10 yards in front. You don't want to test that, and it gives enough time for the safety to get over top, and they're able to force the incompletion on the play. So, what we kind of see with Gardner, especially in these couple clips I've shown, is there are some limitations. If you can get him in man coverage where he can't get hands-on at the line and you have these two-way goes, it is a bit difficult for him. And you see penalties arise, you see big completions pop up. But what is one player who can kind of hide those deficiencies? Mooney Ward. Mooney Ward, who we saw in these first couple clips, will travel with a Calvin Ridley, a very good separator, into the slot, and he's able to make these pass breakups and make plays on the ball. Who can play, again, a player like Calvin Ridley here from a condensed formation with a bit of a two-way go, feels comfortable and confident staying on top of that route in man coverage and getting that pass breakup on the play. Who can travel across the field with Davante Adams and sit on top of these double moves. I don't know if Sauce Gardner plays this route as well as Ward does, where Ward is able to be comfortable on top of this route and make such a great pass breakup, and even can turn and run with a player like Trey Tucker without getting his hands on him at the line of scrimmage. The Colts are good because they have Charvarius Ward who could do that, or especially they did early in the season. So when you factor in what Gardner's kind of deficiencies were with the Jets these last 2 years, these are areas where Ward really thrives, where Ward is very comfortable, and the Colts are confident throwing him out there in those situations. So when you have Ward where you can put him in more of those spots, you can protect Gardner a little bit and just let him do what he does best. Get physical at the line of scrimmage, beat the hell out of wide receivers if he has to, and then just sit back in zone coverage and make life hell for quarterbacks trying to diagnose stuff to his side because of his length and his presence and his zone eyes to just take away these plays. So, people might call it like an overpay because in a way Gardner is a bit limited where he can't do everything you ask a corner to do. But if two aspects that he brings are outstanding press coverage technique with his physicality at the line and one of the best zone corners in football, all you have to do is protect him from like off-man coverage looks and two-way goes. Like if you can just protect him, that's a trade well worth it, And because the Colts have Mooney Ward, you can protect him, because Ward can do a lot of these things. I know it's not as simple as that. There are going to be offenses that can try to isolate Gardner in areas where he's not comfortable, and also offenses that can isolate Ward in areas that he's not comfortable. But, the basic premise is these two guys complement each other very well. Ward can get a lot of these travel aspects where, if offenses want to try to isolate Davante Adams in certain situations, we'll have Ward travel with him, and then we'll have one of the best zone corners in football attached on the backside in some box check or cover 3 Mabel stuff. We'll have Ward just lock in on the backside, and we'll have Gardner being one of the best zone coverage guys on the other side. If we want to blitz a lot, we'll just get Gardner as one of the most outside corners so he can just beat the hell out of a receiver at the line of scrimmage. So there are ways to protect Sauce Gardner in this defense when you have a player like Mooney Ward on the outside. So I just love the potential for these two players together. I think that they're going to be a just phenomenal duo that complement each other so well. I don't think that there needs to be like bona fide number one corner because they both have areas that they thrive in. Ward, you can do off man, you can do press man, you can do any kind of just lock coverage with him, and he can shut down any receiver in football. With Gardner, you can use him as like your zone weapon on the backside, but also have him just get up physical with tight ends or bigger receivers and just beat the hell out of them at the line of scrimmage. I know I've said that a lot in this episode, but that's really where he thrives. So you can get the best possible version of Gardner while protecting him from some of the lesser versions of himself. So, Yeah, I think this duo is going to be fantastic. I'm so excited to see what they can bring on Sundays because Gardner and Ward on paper, I think, is just the ideal fit in this Colts system. And I'm so excited to see what they look like post bye week when Ward is back in the fold.